Before you ever consider closing on a prospect, we need to make sure we've got a good handle on these 3 basic things. So let's say you're this person. You come up into your closing appointments and you're not having success. Typically, if you're not having success in closing appointments, and let's say you've had what you feel to be good quality first, second, third appointments, whatever previous appointments came, however many steps you have in your sales process, when you come to your closing appointment, you're not having success. If that's you, typically, there's a few things that you're not doing well. The first of which being that you are not getting all of the decision makers there to the actual closing appointment, and therefore leaving open a huge objection, or really kind of like a stall roadblock, almost a dead end in your sales process, which is, I've really got to talk to my insert decision maker name before we make a decision on something like this. And you're not going to have a place to argue. So you never, rule number 1, never go into a closing appointment without having the decision makers there to actually make that decision, right? So that's the first and foremost thing. And any influencers, we talked a lot about the difference between decision makers and influencers in our last episode. And really, if you have an influencer that is critical to that decision-making process, they need to be there as well. Or we need to have some sort of acknowledgement of, they couldn't make it, but they told me that we have the ability to move forward if I feel positive about the experience or positive about the solution. I'd almost want that buy-in, some verbal or written acknowledgement of being able to make a decision without that either decision maker or influencer there before I'd ever run that closing appointment. So if you don't bring the decision maker into your appointment, or at least all the decision makers into that closing appointment, you are basically giving up any real opportunity of having a successful closing appointment. The second thing that I think most folks that are struggling with closing appointments, especially if you're getting the decision makers, so let's assume you get the decision makers there, the influencers there, but you still don't have success in the closings, it's because they're not bought in on you. And that's like one of the core concepts of being a really great closer, is that you're not giving them too many decisions to make at closing, right? Like, we cannot confuse our prospect with, you got to make a decision on this thing and this thing. And so what I mean by them being bought in on you is, if you're going into a closing appointment, most of the time you're presenting some sort of solution for them, some sort of product, if you will, for them to make a decision on. Is this product good to solve your problem? But if you're also asking them to buy in on you at the same time, you're giving them 2 decisions to make. Are you the right person? And is that person providing the right product? They might be sold on the product. You might do a really good job of presenting a product to them, but they don't trust you worth a darn. They're not going to move forward, because people do business with people they like, people they trust. And so it is most important that we don't move towards a closing appointment without getting some sort of buying signal from them on you, that they trust you, that they like you. The second biggest crux or fault we see with folks that are struggling with closing appointments is, if they are getting the decision maker there, they are not getting buy-in prior to that closing appointment on themselves. People buy on 3 basic principles: you, your product, and your company. Maybe the greatest side effect of being in that closing appointment and having them bought in and you got all the decision makers there is that when you do provide that solution for them, they're really unlikely to go and then get a second opinion on that, because again, they trust your credibility, you as a person, and you as a company to have all the knowledge necessary to find the right solution for them. And so it almost eliminates that need or that feeling of need to get a second opinion. The folks that still struggle to close after doing all those things right are typically doing a poor job presenting the product in a way that relates to their prospect and their specific situation. They're doing a poor job. They do a lot of facts and features selling. They sell a lot to the specifics of the product and less about the research or the reasons why they picked this product over other products. And so being in the financial world, oftentimes it's less about it has this feature on it that will help with healthcare needs, and it has this fact about it that helps protect against downside losses. The more important thing when describing products is the reasons why the facts or the features will work for their specific situation. So a better way to say, it's got this health benefit rider on it, if you found yourself in a long-term care scenario or something like that, is to say, you know how you told me in the past that you had your mother and your father both end up in a long-term care facility and you kind of felt that was an issue? Well, I felt like that was a really important thing for us to find in a solution out there, so we could cover up any concerns that you had with those things, and so that eliminates some of the other products out there. Do you guys kind of agree with that thought? Like that's one of the top priorities for you? And if the prospect's like, yeah, you're right, yeah, it really was. It was like, well, so that kind of eliminated some of the products off the shelf, but that's something I really love about the product I'm going to talk to you about today, is that it helps solve that problem so that you don't go through the same things that your parents went through. It's got a nice feature built into it that does that. And the other thing that you mentioned to me was downside. Your father had lost a lot of money in 2008, and they struggled to make up the deficit that had been created by that. And so a big portion of what I looked at when I was looking at the rest of the products after I found, these products have that long-term care feature on it, it was what's going to be the best product out there that does the long-term care thing, but also protects against something like what happened to your father with downside protection in 2008 happens to you. So I've picked a product here that does both of those things well. Now, it also has this added benefit, which, you guys mentioned was a really important thing. And you see how everything that I talk about, facts and features, has a reason that pertains to that particular client's stories that they've told me throughout the sales process. If you do those things, you'll find yourself selling the product in a relatable way to the prospect. Instead of just saying, hey, the product that I picked is X, and it's got this long-term care feature, it's got downside protection, and it's got, this upside potential that you mentioned to me were really important to you. The former way that I've presented in a way that feels a deep connection to the product. The latter presentation of that product is descriptive and almost unemotional entirely. And we want people to tap into that emotional side when they're about to purchase a product. People buy on emotion. They tend to buy on emotion, less about facts and more about connection to the solution. And so as a closer, a great closer, I've got my decision makers there. I know that they trust me, and then I display that trust, that reason for trust, by associating them with the product deeply. If you're doing those three things together, you're going to increase your closing rates beyond what the average salesperson would do. In fact, to probably put yourself in the top tier of closing producers. Then it becomes just a matter of how do you find the best quality prospects out there. So if you find yourself struggling, I highly encourage you, try these three things. I think you'll find that you have a lot more action in your closing appointments, a lot more closes in general. And if you have a fourth one, or if you like what we talk about, give this video a like. If you have a fourth one, throw it in the comments. We're always appreciative of comments coming in or advice from our audience. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, always feel free to subscribe. We encourage it, obviously. And if you haven't already checked out some of our older videos, we've got a ton of great sales tips and strategies for folks in the financial space and beyond. So if you're in sales, you'll find these videos generally quite helpful. We'll see you next time here at Coffee for Closers. Take care.